La 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 la. Ah, sun is shining, birds are singing. Such a beautiful summer day. I better get inside and make a YouTube video. But the question is, a video about what? Aha! Famous YouTube superstar PewDiePie just publicly threw some shade at Marvel movies. That sounds good. I can put his name in the title, I can stick his face in the thumbnail. Maybe I could even throw some shade at him just to stir up the pot a bit and get some of those famous views. Oh hi, Felix. I was just standing here, talking to myself about nothing really. Okay, just wait a second. Felix, just please don't. I was just... No, don't! Just for the purposes of full transparency, I'll start this thing off by saying that I'm a fan of PewDiePie. I've been a fan of him ever since that My Number One Hater video, which to me still ranks among the funniest pieces of content on this site. After my own genius super funny uploads, of course. Coming from me, this PewDiePie praise is saying a lot. Since if you've seen my video about title translations, you know that I'm actually Krakosian. As in, I live in Krakosia, which is located practically right next to PewDiePie's home country, Sweden. And historically, we Krakosians don't really like Swedish people all that much. In fact, it is in our DNA to downright despise them, simply because they're all so fantastically successful. And they also always beat us in hockey when it matters. Goddamn wealthy, prosperous bunch of con. Moving on. As you might already be aware, not too long ago PewDiePie uploaded this kind of rantish video about the MCU and Marvel movies in general. In his said video, he brought up several different points about what he feels are the biggest problems with these Marvel superhero movies and why he doesn't like them anymore, as well as why you shouldn't like them either. And that's why we're here today. Not because I get to put PewDiePie's name in the title, but instead so that we can analyze his most essential arguments further and then based on them examine the current state of the MCU and other Marvel films. The main objective being to find out if there actually is truth to what PewDiePie was talking about. Also, as we always do on this channel, despite me being a fan of PewDiePie, I'll do my best to remain as objective and unbiased as possible. Just like my favorite ethical news outlet here on YouTube has taught me. The first core piece of criticism PewDiePie brings up is also the most obvious one, aka there are too many Marvel movies. And there he has a point. Are there too many? I'll leave that for everyone to decide for themselves, but there are quite a few of them. And this isn't only a Marvel thing either, but instead kind of applies to today's Hollywood in general. Whereas in the 80s and 90s original spec scripts were king, now this whole industry runs on reboots and sequels and never-ending franchises, like it has done for a while. That's nothing new. And the reason for this franchise mentality is the exact same reason for why PewDiePie keeps making the same things like Why and You Laugh You Lose over and over and over again. It's because they are established properties which historically do well with the audience. The first stumble PewDiePie takes, I think, is when he says that all these Marvel movies are the same. I can understand where he's coming from, as he's not the only person saying it. Even people like Steven Spielberg and James Cameron have brought up the same point. Both of them legendary filmmakers that I personally hold in very high regard. It's just that in this particular situation, I'm not so sure they know exactly what it is they're talking about. It was Spielberg who said that superhero movies will most likely fade away with time, just like westerns did. Me, however, I don't really see it that way, because of one simple thing. Western is a genre. Superhero isn't a genre. It might have been a genre a few years ago, but it's not anymore. In fact, just with the MCU movies alone, I think there's as much variety as with most other Hollywood blockbusters combined. For example, let's compare Winter Soldier and Thor Ragnarok. One is a greyish political thriller which takes itself very seriously, and the other, just look at it. Some audiences have indeed felt burned out by the huge amount of new superhero movies being released, and so they don't pay attention to them anymore, which is understandable. But at the same time, this factor of ignoring makes this kind of a catch-22 situation. As in, if you're not watching these films, then you don't know what kind of films they actually are. And if that's the case, are you then the correct person to criticize them?
You know, at the end of the movie where the villain is fighting the superhero and there's this moment of suspense, but then oh, the movie's about to wrap up any minute now because he's about to fight back, and the superhero will win, and there will be a happy shot where everyone is just happy in the end. If at least one of these movies went on a different path, at least I would think, okay, maybe this one will be different.
Another thing PewDiePie talked about was the overuse of CGI in superhero movies. A lot of stuff in these projects has to be computer generated, and that's why some other films like The Dark Knight could be considered to be stronger. A fair point. Although with this subject it might be more about personal preference over anything else. Like me, I wasn't really feeling the CGI suit sequences in Black Panther, but in Infinity War I thought Thanos looked incredible. And I think that Josh Brolin's performance shouldn't be disregarded just because his character happened to be not real. But again, this might depend on your personal preference. After concluding the oversaturation argument, PewDiePie kind of out of nowhere goes on this defense mode about anime, which apparently he's a fan of. What he's basically saying is that anime is different from superhero movies and that it's better because it's more varied and sophisticated. Also, he makes it clear that he doesn't like kids anime but instead just grown-ups anime. From what I understood, he does this because he knows it will most likely be used against him by some of his audience. So he's already preparing for that, which to be honest is pretty smart. Me, I don't know that much about anime, aside from maybe being into DBZ at one point in my life, so I can't really say much about this subject. But what stuck out to me was when PewDiePie expressed that these Marvel superhero movies are all meant just for young people and that in his opinion adults shouldn't be allowed to enjoy them.
Calm down. I love anime. I don't like shonen anime. Shonen anime is what's targeted for teens between 12 and 18. And that's the same thing really with Marvel movies. They're for teenagers. But for some reason it's still allowed for grown men to enjoy and cry about these films being interesting.
Overall, I found this whole age argument pretty weird, mainly because of two reasons. First, I personally don't think accusing Marvel movies of being aimed only at younger audiences is factually airtight. Sure, kids like them, but that doesn't mean they're only for kids. There are films which aren't exclusive to just one specific demographic, but instead can be enjoyed by the whole family, regardless of age. In fact, I'd say that in some part it's actually the other way around. While most Marvel movies are meant for families, there are others aimed only at more mature audiences. Secondly, let's say PewDiePie's argument does hold truth to it. And I guess that is fair to say, since without a doubt the younger demographic is Marvel's priority with these movies. So in that sense, the point is understandable. But even so, that doesn't mean that older audiences shouldn't feel okay to enjoy them. And if you personally thought that way, that you think it's dumb for any grown man to feel invested in them, I don't know why you would ever feel the need to come out and actually say that. Like at the end of the day, all you're doing is just making other people feel bad about themselves. And I don't think that's necessary. Like just earlier today, I watched an episode of DuckTales. Yes, that's right, I'm a 45-year-old man who likes a children's cartoon. And that's perfectly okay. It's not like that makes me a sad cuck or anything, am I right? Right, guys? Hello? In reality though, the way I see it, like whatever you want, no matter how old you might be. If you enjoy superhero movies, great. If you enjoy adult anime, great. If you enjoy kids shogun anime, great.
Shonen anime.
Who actually cares about Ant-Man? Personally, I don't, at least not that much. But apparently a lot of other people do, and all the power to them. According to PewDiePie, superheroes shouldn't be idolized because audiences can't ever be like them, no matter how they train or study or effort. That's a fair argument, I can see where he's coming with that. And I guess that's why Batman for many people is the definitive superhero. Simply because everything Bruce Wayne is, he achieved for himself. Nothing was handed to him, if you don't count the billions of dollars he inherited. But on the other hand, there is also the argument to be made that it's this inhuman quality why audiences enjoy superhero movies in the first place. Take Dragon Ball Z for example. People don't feel invested in these characters because of how endlessly strong they are. It's because no matter how strong they get, they still always struggle and have to keep pushing themselves further to succeed. And while a fan of DBZ can't necessarily achieve the ability of flight, or if I'm wrong please DM me with more info, they can still be just like Goku by pushing themselves harder and harder. If this idols have to be in audience's reach to be compelling thought process was the only right point of view, then the fan favorite character of Dragon Ball for example would have to be someone like Krillin or Yamcha, and somehow I don't think that's the case. Overall, you could also bring up the point that it's because these stories are pure fiction that makes them so popular, because they offer people a way for a brief moment to be free from the problems of the real world and believe in something more. But I guess that too has a lot to do with personal preference.
Congrats to the entire Black Panther team! Because of you, young people will finally see superheroes that look like them on the big screen. Way to put more emphasis on race than what is necessary at all. Oh, that's right, I can't idolize Lightning McQueen from Cars 1 and 2 because he's a vehicle of transportation. Why not teach kids that their own morals and values comes from themselves? Instead of, oh, you look like this person, so you can be like this because you have the same complexion of skin.
To be honest, my initial intention was to say absolutely nothing about this point. Simply because if I do say anything, you guys will once again start commenting that I sound like Makarov from Modern Warfare. Which I don't. I'm nothing like Makarov. He's an evil Russian ultranationalist. I'm just a normal Caucasian boy who makes YouTube videos in his parents' basement. And if anyone leaves any snarky remarks about that, I will ban you forever. I actually won't. Comment whatever you want, as long as you comment. When I was younger, I used to have this exact same thought process as PewDiePie. Skin color doesn't matter. So then why is it apparently so important that we have superheroes with different color and different gender? Let's say there exists a fictional world inhabited by two different forms of life, squares and circles. In this world, all the superhero movies so far have starred only squares. But now the studios are considering throwing some circles in there as well. When one square moviegoer hears about this, all he can do is wonder why. Shapes don't matter. Having circles up on screen just for the sake of having circles up on screen has no meaning. And he's right. It doesn't have any meaning. At least not to him. But for a circle moviegoer, it might be just a bit strange to live in a world where all these iconic heroes are squares. He is circular, they are angular. So then... God damn it. Was Black Panther important to me personally? No, I thought that movie was pretty mediocre, which funny enough some of you guys gave me quite a bit of flack for. But while that movie wasn't important to me, at the same time I do understand that it might have been important to someone else, just like was the case with Wonder Woman. And in that sense, yes, it is important that we get these movies. Oh, and going back to the oversaturation thing, you could actually view the MCU's huge size as a positive as well, since now that the franchise has a built-in audience, they can experiment with the kind of films which haven't been proven in the box office before and thus could be considered a financial risk by the studios. Films like Wonder Woman and Black Panther.
Last but not least, in Infinity War, apparently a big deal of the movie is that a lot of superheroes die. Let's just entertain the idea that, let's say Iron Man dies. Do you actually think they're gonna just then stop making Iron Man movies? Do you think that franchise is just somehow completely gone? They're still making Spider-Man movies.
This is very true. In fact, if you want to learn more, watch my video about the ultimate meaninglessness of Infinity War's so-called shocking ending. One last thing, and don't tell anyone what I'm about to say right now. I mean it, if PewDiePie hears about this, he will take his 60 million subs and obliterate my tiny channel in one swift snap of his fingers. But here it is. Throughout the video, PewDiePie throws shade at Marvel and MCU, but also talks good things about Batman. Think about it. DC owns Batman. Disney owns Marvel. PewDiePie used to be under Disney, but for whatever reason he was let go. Don't you find that just a bit suspicious? I think, and promise me to keep this to yourself, I think PewDiePie is secretly working for DC and Warner Brothers. Think about it. He's talking bad things about Marvel so that he can increase the Rotten Tomato score of Batman v Superman. Oh crap. Please, just one moment. Please. That's all I ask. I swear I'm just about to get my first AdSense paycheck. I beg you, PewDiePie. I need that money so that I can finally pay off my sick mother's medical bills.